This is the unbelievable time of the week, and I know you've all been waiting to come up to see and listen to our Empower with Haseeb and myself. So Haseeb, before we continue, I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. We're not going to talk about weather this time round. Isn't that different, right?
Something different, yes.
Yes. A little dicky bird told me that Haseeb has just come back from a lovely land called Sri Lanka.
That dicky bird was absolutely correct. I have been away for Sri Lanka for a holiday, and I tell you, it's a brilliant country. It's a fantastic country. It's got so much to offer. It's got it's got the beaches, it's got the forests, it's got the animals there. It's fantastic. You just don't hear much people talking about it, but it's got so much to offer, that country has.
So, a little question. You touched just there a moment on with reference to an animal. And the animal that comes into my mind, because I know you specifically went out of your way to ensure that you spent some time with this animal, was an elephant. So come on, you've got to tell us, did you do the most important part of joining there and bath and swim with the elephants?
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's absolutely correct. I did see the elephant, and it was amazing. You just don't realize how big they are. You see it on TV, wherever, but when you see it in real life, you're thinking, wow.
That's a really important part. You know, I had the good fortune of seeing elephants when I was in India as well once, but in specific recently in 2016 I think I went to Goa. Goodness me, they're big.
They're big. They're definitely
very big.
You don't want to be trampled by them. No.
Makes you think about all those olden days, you know, the historic times when they were used in war.
Well, yes.
Yeah, so you can imagine when they were drunk and spiked, they were pretty dangerous things.
They were a pretty dangerous animal on there, and they were used in wars. You're absolutely right on there. Another thing that really, what I could say was, is something I saw there was because I went to an area where the tsunami happened.
Wow.
And it's one thing hearing about it and then seeing it and the impact they had on the country. And there was many stories people told me there. But what really amazed me is the people that had the courage to come back from that tsunami, and build their lives again.
Wow.
And
that's true empowerment, isn't it?
It's
about the
motivation.
motivation.
Is on there.
Now, when you spoke to the individuals, and I mean, the tsunami was an absolute devastation everywhere that it's been in recent times as well. In many, many countries, there's been variable sort of tsunamis. Our heart goes out to them. May God bless them all with an enlightened future and coming through. But just a question to yourself, just before we go on to our guest today, Haseeb. Did you find anything specific that was driving these normal folk to rebuild their lives and actually stand up and actually help themselves get up again?
I think what I saw for many of them was that they've been through so much pain, and many people have lost their families. There's a lot of orphans there now, and while they were there, they wanted to give something back to the community. They wanted to get back to living their normal life. They wanted, in a way, what one of them heard say, defeat the tsunami. Come back to and live a normal life how it was before, and also from there, the community is a lot more closer now, and all the community tries to help each other out, and it's built. There's a bond there, which wasn't there before, as he said, before the tsunami. There's a lot more community events happening together, and they appreciate a lot more what's around that area.
So, what we've taken from there, Haseeb, is that actually, even through devastation, even through life completely being destroyed, we still, as mankind, have this within ourselves, because we all have God within us. It's ourselves that turns up and stands up and actually turns around and says, you know what? No. Our community, the people, the lives and the relationships we have mean so much to us. So our heart goes out to everybody who got affected by the tsunami recently, and thank you very much for bringing that to the table to our discussion today, Haseeb. Boy, have we got another tantalizing, amazingly gripping individual for the speak today. So if you'd like to get involved, don't forget this is Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Alternatively, please get in touch via our Facebook page. It's live now. You can view us here. So we will say hello to you, as you can see through the actual camera. And today, get involved. Please communicate. We are actually going to live coach. So if anybody has any challenges with themselves going forward in business, in social structures, maybe even motivation, Gary Setterfield, who I'm going to introduce in 30 seconds, will be the man to be asking. So if you'd like to get involved via WhatsApp, please call 07745 278 978. Or alternatively, please do call in if you'd like to speak to us on our studio phone on 01733 602 133. So, tonight, we are not going to let you down, are we, Hasib, with the quality of person we've brought today?
Definitely not going to let them down. You've got a fantastic quality, fantastic knowledge.
The gentleman we are talking about is a very good dear friend and a dear brother of mine. He's ended up becoming a business partner of mine after we've been working together as coaching and mentoring over a number of years. His name is Gary Setterfield. His background, he has touched thousands of individuals by heart, with helping them through property strategies, by helping them through VIP high-end endorsements. He has worked 26 years in the banking system. He was one of the individuals who trained individuals for the senior management and teams on chip and pin. Now, we all know chip and pin and we take it for granted today. But this is Gary Setterfield who was involved in that. And a lovely story that he shares. He says, once upon a time, he said, what I did basically after 26 years, and this is nothing bad to the banking system team. He says very simply, he said, I walked out of the lesson, I walked into my changing rooms and I opened up my locker and there was a balaclava. And he goes, I put the balaclava around, and he goes, I ran out and never went back since that day. So, without any further ado, I'd like to bring in my very close friend, humble friend and buddy, business partner, and an amazing brother, and one of our lead SynaGus method power trainers, Gary Setterfield. Gary, welcome.
Welcome, Sukhi. Hello. Thank you very much. Seeb, hello. Welcome to you.
We were all going off with this little croaky throat thought. You know, this croaky look. You know, is it cool? I don't know. But let's just make it happen, right? So, Gary, you know, we're here today. And anybody who really knows Gary Setterfield knows that he's there for everybody else and doesn't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about drinking water for himself. So don't forget, drink your water that's been put there for you.
I will, thank you.
But today is Gary Setterfield Day. Okay? So, Gary, please tell us, you know, how did you get into the field of, let's say, education and coaching? Because you're one of the foremost and go-to individuals when it comes to training the brain out of bad habits and demotivational thoughts. So please tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay. The main start was many years ago when I was in the bank, and I went on a performance coaching course in Crawley. I remember it very, very vividly because I spent most of the day or the course looking at the tutor, looking at what he was doing, listening intently to the way he delivered rather than the information which was going in automatically. And there was one particular exercise we undertook which had 4 people standing around a normal chair. And we had to lift them up with, if I could describe it over the radio, a James Bond gun look. Whoa. So you had 4 people holding a chair by the James Bond finger, and we lifted a 16-stone person, just the 4 of us.
Are you telling me, Gary, that 4 of you, individual, put your fingers, if anybody can see our video, they can see that you're talking like this. You're telling me that you had 2 fingers together, and you're telling me that was underneath each one of the legs of the stool or the chair?
Oh, just under the seat.
Just under the seat?
Yes.
And what, you all lifted up?
We all lifted up.
With strain?
With no strain at all. The learning that came from this, and this was the bit that fundamentally changed how I looked at life from there on, was we were not put into a trance, but the mind was set on a different path.
A bit like hypnosis, right?
A bit like hypnosis. And I didn't know it was that at the time. And what we did was we were told to become cranes, as in the building crane. So we had the power of a crane. We could lift anything, absolutely anything. The person sitting on the seat was asked to become an astronaut. And they were as light as a feather. So they were induced into a belief that they were as light as a feather. We were cranes that could lift anything. So the power of lifting a feather was just like, fine, let's go for it. Bang, up he left. And he raised about 3-4 foot off the ground. Now, that in itself was quite amazing, but to have it done to you as well just reinforced the learning for me.
So you're telling me that basically you swapped over.
Mm-hmm.
So now you sat in the chair.
So now I sat in the chair, as did my other colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, the point came where if we're only using, let's say, 10% of our brain at the moment,
mm-hmm.
and just by a little bit of coaching, you can induce someone to think and believe they can do and lift anything. And you can also believe and induce somebody to think that they are as light as a feather. If we harness that into other areas, how could we become more effective? How could we move forward in life? What could we actually achieve that we're not ever coming close to? And I remember very closely going back to my manager, Richard, after the course. And I said to him, as he always did, we had our meetings every morning, and he said, right, okay, so how'd you get on? So I said to him, right, Richard, well, do you want the good news or the bad news? He said, uh-oh. And he said to me, okay, let's have the good news. I said, right, the good news is I now know what I want to do. And I'm very clear, I'm very focused, I know exactly where I want to go. Okay, and the bad news, it's not working with you.
Oh my goodness! Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that, Hasib? A boss standing there who's actually paid for your training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who said, let me take you to the next level of psychological understanding, yes, to become more effective at your current job. And you go back and say, guess what? I don't want to work with you anymore.
Yeah.
He was lost for words, wasn't he?
Well, no, he was very good because he was a brilliant manager, an absolutely brilliant manager. I'm still friends with him. We still converse at Christmas. And I did add a caveat. I said, so how can you help me become a trainer with the bank? And I'll help you still remain as the number one team here in the bank within the business lending.
Within itself, that, Gary, shows your own character. The humility and the honesty that's needed in life to be successful, right?
So he said, okay, let's do it. So I continued working with him, and we continued to become and stay the number one team for that period of time. And he, true to his word, helped me with my training to empower me to get into the training team. And that's when I then moved on to become a national, international and group trainer for the bank, and as it was later on, Royal Bank of Scotland Group.
Wow.
No, it's a fantastic story you just told there, the good bit and the bad bit of your manager.
He was brilliant. He was a very, very switched on cookie, and I was very grateful to be working with him.
As you said, you're a coach now, but did the response that you got from your manager, did that make you think, as a coach, because of his idea, his support, you got where you are? And is that something you wanted to do in the future yourself? Is that something that led towards that? Yeah,
it's funny you should say that, Hasib, because I didn't realise at the time. Now you mention it, it's actually become more clearer for me. There were 2 or 3 people who, particularly in my career, have been outstanding in the way they lead. And the outstanding features that they had were they led from the front, but they also listened intently. They worked with you, not against you. They worked to empower you, to make you feel as though you were important. And therefore, unknowingly to us, we worked tirelessly for them. And that's what coaching's all about. That's what mentoring's about. It's about providing that guidance that people require, but helping them move forward to gain and achieve what they wanted to. And as I said, there are 3 or 4 people, two or three people who particularly I worked very closely with, both as when I was working with the training team in Oxford, the Staff Training College, and also at my first branch. The branch manager there, I remember he said to me one day, he said, right, now you're new here. He said, I'm sure you've got lots of great ideas. He said, and you've just been moved in here. He said, but one piece of advice I'll give you. Before you make any decision, give it 6 months. Give it 6 months in whatever role you are and whatever you undertake, and then make your decision, then make the changes.
Now, what a massively important bit of information just shared there. For example, most individuals, they tend to turn up in a workplace and then within the first few weeks they feel it's not for them. So instead of, as Gary, what you're sharing there is basically is really powerful, because you're saying stick it out for at least 6 months and then understand whether it was just you with the change or whether it's truly not for you.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Great message to everybody who's listening.
Thank you.
Actually, you worked for the bank for how long?
26 and a half years.
26 and a half
I don't know how many days now as it was, but
And why not?
it's not quite in my profile to know that sort of detail.
Talk about profile. We'll have to touch on that in a moment, hey? But we'll do a little bit more about psychometric profiling this in the second half, if it's okay with everyone.
Sure.
But please, Karen.
As you said, 26 and a half years you worked there, and then you opened your own business, or you went...
Yeah, there.
That decision that you must have made there, that was a big decision you made.
Yes,
Jumping away with the balaclava on your head.
Yeah,
you know, we've got to be clear about this,
yes,
right?
it's,
It's about leaving the banking system with a balaclava that you found. So
Yeah,
that's a big decision.
It was a bit of an SAS move, and probably one that, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't do again. And I only say that because jumping out of the fire, out of the frying pan into the fire, as they say, is risky. It does have its downsides, its drawbacks. The reason I changed, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, was that I had just lost my dad in 2007.
Sorry to hear that.
And I was 2006. He died. I'd lost my mum previously while I was training on a course. I got a phone call from my dad saying, "We've lost mum." The first thing goes through your mind is, what do you mean you've lost mum? And then it suddenly dawned on me what he was talking about.
Bless you.
And
Sorry to hear that. Hear your sadness there. Yeah.
no,
fine.
thank you. That tends to focus you in a different direction. You have all sorts of emotions, and what I realised, and in hindsight now, is I've been going through the grief process, sort of through the anger and the cross and the loss, and etc. etc. And sorry.
No problem.
Apologies for anybody who's now deafened. So I'd been supporting my dad when mum suddenly died, and as you do, you don't realise what you're doing. Well, dad's there, let's look after dad, and you don't necessarily realise what's happening. Fortunately, my girlfriend at the time, which was then my wife, his now wife, Tanya, she took the brunt of my grieving process, and I'm eternally grateful to her for that, because she put up with a lot, and I didn't realise what I was doing. So what we did was I'd lost my dad. Dad was here. He then suddenly died through cancer, and it changes your viewpoint. And
Wow.
Tanya and I were working in this multi-level marketing business, and I just sat there one night in the car listening to a record on the radio while Tanya was at seeing one of the clients, and I just said, "There's more to life than this. There's
Yes.
more to life than travelling up and down to London." I didn't want. I wanted to spend more time with my wife. I wanted. It made me realise that life is that short, and
Wow.
it can end that quickly. So I made the decision, and again, I had a very, very good manager who I very clearly thought about how I was going to do this, when I was going to do it. There are a few things going on that I didn't like happening, and so when I put my resignation in, the manager came up to me and she said, "Look, okay, I understand. Let's work through it. Let's talk about it." And again, it was somebody who was supportive, somebody who was listening, and somebody who wanted to help. And what I realise now, in hindsight, is that each of these monumental meetings that I've had with people have been just adding extra fuel to this is what I can do, this is what I'm good at,
Wow.
this is what I want to do. And this is how I met Sukhi.
Yeah.
which
Well,
I'm sure we'll come to.
Yeah, well, but that, just for the audience, just to have a listen to our listeners, because they come to the core of what we're understanding. This is the empowerment hour. It's about realizing that we can actually motivate ourselves and move ourselves further forward just by getting the right community and the right mindset around ourselves. So what Gary's just said there for everybody, in a very simple understanding, is that we have been in a position, in a situation where life happens to us. It does. It genuinely does. You know, we lose our loved ones, we lose our parents, and somehow, somewhere, we find the person who actually ignites us, whether it's a work person, whether it's a boss, whether it's a colleague, or whether it's our life partner or girlfriend at the time, or boyfriend at the time. So, just for everybody to understand that there's always a way forward. We are we're actual individuals who always look for what we call surroundings, our community support. So well done. So in that context here, Gary, just to understand that's been obviously a clear motivator for yourself to become a coach. So just to help us a little bit, because we've got about another 5 minutes left before we go for our first break. Wow, the time just goes like that.
Wow, that has gone quick.
So in context, Gary, just a little thought to yourself.
Yeah.
What's the process of becoming a coach, for example? I mean, a coach is a coach. You know, there's so many people out there who call themselves coaches. There's many people out there who call themselves mentors. What is the difference in your view? And then what is the onboarding process? What I mean by that is, how can you become a coach? Maybe somebody here our listeners today or viewers in the future would want to become a coach themselves.
Okay. The process I took was, first and foremost, I have to thank the bank, because they trained me as a trainer. And at the time when we were training, a lot of training was done by sort of reading a book and reading out of a process manual. The process that we were taught was facilitation.
Wow.
And facilitation is where you draw out from the audience the answers. You get them to think about the answers, which is principally what coaching is. You're bringing out the best of the person in front of you. Now, you asked the question about the difference between that and mentoring. Thanks, Cissy. For anybody on, I'm just giving some water so I don't deafen you all again. So, mentoring is where somebody has the experience of having been there, got the T-shirt, as we say, and they know the shortcuts. They know the way to help people quickly achieve their results. A coach doesn't always know the field that you want to be in. For example, let's say I might work with a motor mechanic. Now, I know that car's got 4 wheels, it's got 4 doors or a 2-door, depending on the model. But how the engine works, I haven't got a clue. But I could still coach a mechanic to be a better mechanic by getting them to explain what they do, how they do it. Get them to understand that there may be a quicker way. How might they find that quicker way? Get them to think through the process and think, okay, so how can I shortcut that process? I don't need to know the process, as long as they do.
So you're getting them to do it. So I get it. So if the audience is listening about this, they're listening to this, they think you don't need to hold yourself back from becoming a coach just because you think you don't know enough about a particular niche. I know for a fact you haven't got a background in car racing, but you mindset coach car racers.
Yes, drivers.
Yeah, please help us a little bit about that.
So with drivers, I don't teach them how to drive. They know that as soon as the visors go down and they leave the pit lane, they're on their own. And even if you did try to teach them, they probably wouldn't remember it anyway, because they just get a red mist, a lot of them. The better ones, the Lewis Hamiltons of the world and the top Formula 1 racers, etc., they've learned to control that red mist, although sometimes you wouldn't realise.
Got it.
But in the lesser ranks, I was talking to a lot of drivers as I was finding out what to do and how to get involved. And one of the things that a number of them said is, we get really nervous by walking around the pits and seeing other people changing their cars, changing the wheels, changing the tyres, tinkering with things to make changing in settings, and they become paranoid. So the idea working with drivers is to keep them focused and to keep their mind on the job in hand. Let the mechanics get on with tinkering with the car. The drivers can work on the setup with the mechanics and say, well, it pulls left, it pulls right, it steers here, it steers there. Let the mechanics then put that into jargon that they can then fix.
Got it. So basically getting themselves to the next level. Sorry, I'm having to cut you in there.
That's fine,
David, in that context there, Gary. But we're in a situation where we're down to our last minute already, Hasib. Amazing.
Time has
So
been quick,
this
man.
is the Empower Hour on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Please watch now or listen now or get onto the Facebook page and start getting involved and give us a few questions if you can, because we're going to be live coaching just afterwards after the first break. So Gary Setterfield is here. He's actually the lead SynaGus method coach when it comes to the business boardroom, and he'll cover that for you in a moment. It's www.businessboardroom.com or business-boardroom.com before he throws something at me. But we're going to go through some understandings of what the benefits are just after the break. So don't forget to come back in and tune in and find out how masterminding or business minding can help you. See you shortly.
Welcome back. You're listening to Empower Hour on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM. Purpose and objective of Empower Hour is to inspire, encourage and empower you to become bigger and better in all walks of life. Just before we went on the break, Gary was mentioning regarding the difference between a coach and a mentor, and you didn't finish answering the question on there, so we'll come back to that so you can finish the question.
I suddenly realised that I hadn't answered the second part of the question, which is how do you get into coaching? As I said, the first half had already been mapped out for me. I then decided that I wanted to pursue coaching and learning more about mindset and language, and we followed a process with a group called Chris Howard, a lovely gentleman. Met him several times as we were learning, and he had a program which is when I first met Sukhi, and that's where I learnt about neuro-linguistic programming. So where you're able to change people's viewpoints, their thinking, their thought processes through language.
So that was neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Yes,
NLP.
That's right. Got it.
And what that enabled me to learn and understand was that I'd actually been doing that unknowingly. And I remember saying to one of the trainers at the time, I said to him, look, I'm not using the processes that you're teaching me. He said, good. He said, then you are. And I said, okay, let's do that one again. I don't feel I'm using the processes that you're teaching me properly. And he said, yes, you are. He said, because if you weren't using them, you'd know it. The fact that you don't think you're using them means that you are using them because it's become natural. And there are 4 stages of learning where the ultimate is unconscious competence, where you're unconsciously aware that you're actually competent in what you're doing.
So just to stop you there, Gary, I would like something a bit more on that. So if you don't mind, could you just give a little bit more of a clarity on that? Because that sounds really interesting, the conscious competency. So 4 stages of learning. Please help us a little bit.
Okay, fine. Very, very quickly, there are 4 stages of learning, and I'll use driving, learning to drive, because that's what probably most people will
as a metaphor.
As a metaphor. So, first and foremost, you know that you can't drive when you sit in the car and your parents say, right, off you go. Okay, so what do? That's conscious incompetence. The next level to that is conscious conscious competence, where you then become competent by remembering what you are doing. So you're learning the stage. You suddenly become aware then that you can't do it. So, conscious incompetence. So you are aware that you can't do it. First you didn't know what you were doing. Then you suddenly become aware that you can't do it. So you then start learning. Then you get to the third stage, which is conscious, Conscious
competence.
Conscious competence, where you're suddenly aware then your dive instructor is sitting with you. He's taking you, he says, right, now take a right turn at the next junction. And so you'll then take a right turn. You know that you've got to do mirror signal maneuver. You then know how to change gears. You then know to press the clutch, etc., etc., etc. And then finally get to the fourth stage, which I said earlier, which is where, and I'm sure we've all had this, where you suddenly get to the end of a journey and you say, well, how did I get here? You don't remember all the turns, you don't remember how you got there, you remember turning the engine on, but everything that came through.
I have to put my hand up. I'm one of those guys, I'm afraid. We start the driving and we just get A to B and we go,
A to B,
how did I do that?
Unless, of course, we've done our advanced driving test, and then that's where you then are aware of everything that's going along, like the police drivers, etc., etc.
I know nothing.
No, not saying a word. So...
just in case everybody doesn't realise that actually Gary Setterfield has actually got a chest infection and he still didn't turn us down. That's what you call the power of self-coaching and focus and motivation. So yeah, that's true empowerment if you ask me the question there.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, you can't catch it over the air, so that's all right.
But we can get it in the room. So we can get it in the room. Don't share your love with us now.
So they're the 4 levels of learning, and so that's what had happened. That had been coming through, and Chris and his trainers and yourself, Sukhi, because that's where we first met. Where I was under, one of the parts was public speaking and stage speaking, and Sukhi was one of the mentors in our groups. So he remembers me actually telling my story of how I went to Brands Hatch on a track day.
Yeah, specifically I do.
Yes, and that's where we first met, and then we lost contact, and then the story later on was we then reconnected when I was working somewhere else. But that journey, those few years from 2007 onwards, 2009 onwards, was where I really learnt about coaching in the true sense, and that's where I then gained the tools to the toolbox. That's where they taught me many processes which you then can use and adapt.
So just to take this into a slightly different direction, you're talking about you now coach and assist people within business and structures.
Sure.
and assist them in mindset potential. Mm-hmm. So you call this specifically of taking people to what you call peak potential.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now, just to have a little bit of a conversation around this, I think we're going to put you a bit on the spot here. Hasib's got a real key question, because bringing people to peak potential, Gary Setterfield, you're not too adverse to that yourself, are you?
I've got a question regarding peak potential.
Oh dear. Okay.
Dancing is hard enough, but you're a world champion dancer.
Oh, we got it out of the open.
Okay. Where did you start? Dancing in itself is hard enough, but you being a world champion dancer, you and your partner.
My wife. Yeah, we're both world champion line dancers, and yes, we were wearing the cowboy hats and the cowboy boots when we did it. I'm a trained ballroom Latin dancer. My mum and dad took me to dance classes.
Wow.
When we moved to an area. We were doing disco line dance, so that sort of ages me quite considerably.
So just in case the audience is not clear on this, right? So when Gary went to school, they used stone on walls. And it may be in the progression of this would use chalk, if I'm correct, yes?
Yes, yeah.
And I've heard you say that made charcoal on the stage many. Charcoal, that's the one.
And dinosaurs were roaming outside it, yes. Yes. Yeah, my best friend was a T-Rex. Yes. No, I learnt ballroom Latin. I then moved to a new area in Sussex, Burgess Hill, and there was a dance school there. I didn't know anybody, so I just went along one night and thought, well, I'll go and join some line dances, because I don't know much about line dancing, but it's fun. I met my teacher there, and she ran a group called the Live Wires, and it was a line dance team, and I was asked to join the team, which I was very, very humbled to be asked, and soon progressed to helping her with the team, and that's when I then met Tanya, my wife to be. And the story of that is that for many years I danced behind Tanya because I had a dance partner, and the joke was that we got together because I wanted to see what the front looked like, because I'd always been dancing behind her.
Well, if you get to know Gary Setterfield personally, and also Tanya, they're just the most jovial bunch you could ever see. So when we say, when an individual, I'm very proud to say, Hasib and everybody else listening here, that Gary and myself work quite closely, and the power of this is that he's always one of those funny, jovial jokers in the pack. He's always kept it in there. So I assume whatever he's been doing in his life with reference to coaching, in a sense, it really does help. Yeah,
it does. I mean, the dancing was a case in point, because at the height of our careers, as it were, we were UK, UK, British, double European, and
Wow.
we then went on to become world champions. We went to Nashville in 2000, and from there,
was that Nashville, Tennessee?
That was Nashville, Tennessee.
That was Nashville, Tennessee.
We
for
took
anybody
it to
else
the
who's
Americans, and we took 3 routines out there. We got first, second, and third in the routines. Came as a team third overall, but because we got one dance, we were first in one of our dances. We are technically world champions in that genre of dance. So, yes, bringing people to peak performance. We were training 20 to 30 hours a week on top of a normal full-time job. I was training in Oxford. I was travelling back in evenings after lessons. I was then training for 2 or 3 hours. We were training 3 or 4 nights a week and all weekend. And from there, you have to keep focused. You're building muscle memory. And it's the same with driving. It's the same with anything. You build your body up to a peak performance. You keep it at that level. You stay focused. You stay on track. You know what you need to do to maintain the fitness levels. You drive through illnesses. You drive through injuries, etc.
So if I could just interject there, Gary, I mean, how would one keep themselves into a positive mindset? For example, you said peak potential. So I'm sure life has distractions, right? Mm-hmm. So how would one keep their focus in life? I mean, do feel free to share any method you know.
Okay, the method that we've used and that we use frequently now is one called the SynaGus DFT, Daily Focus Time. And it's all about maintaining your direction, having a focal point, keeping your eye on what is the most important thing that you have to achieve. And that comes through a process of just distilling down lots of information into 3 key areas. They're the 3 things you focus on. Everything else is then swept aside. Clean sheet, and then come back. So to keep yourself focused, you must have a goal. Where are you aiming for? What is your overall objective in whatever you're doing, whether it be driving, whether it be life? What is your ultimate goal for where you want to be? And a lot of people won't know what that is. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will be saying, well, I don't know what it is. So sit down quietly. Sit down and think to yourself. Get a clean piece of paper and just write down all the things that come into your head. And then distill it down. You know, what do they say the 10 most important things? What are the 5 most important things? What are the 3 most important things? And you'll be amazed. Your mind will become clear. There'll be a point whilst you're doing this process. If anybody wants to know how to do the process very quickly, Sukhi, you do a TED Talk on your SukhiWahiwala.com site. And on there's a TED Talk. If you go onto the TED Talk, Sukhi runs through the whole process that I'm just distilling very quickly for you.
If you Google basically Sukhi TED Talk, that's TED Talk, you should be able to get it on there.
Yep.
And you forward it to around 10 minutes, and then you can get the 7 steps of DFT.
Yeah. So you basically distill everything down, and then from there you are then able to focus on 3 things, and you put them in an order of 1, 2, and 3. And you then stay focused on that first point. Then you work on the second point, then you work on the third point, but you stay focused. And it's the same in life. Things will come, they will knock you sideways, they will take you off track. As long as you know where you're heading, as long as you know what your destination is, you will get side winds, you will get different currents. Sometimes you have to go off track to learn new skills, to learn new techniques, to bring you back onto track, to help you stay on focus. But as long as you have an ultimate goal, that's what you need.
Wonderful
advice, fantastic advice on that.
So basically what you're saying is, if I understand this correctly, is that if you ask a good question of your unconscious mind and then answer it wholeheartedly, for example, in a mind map format or alternatively...
Whatever format, yeah.
Yeah, or even a list. And then you said there was the stages you were talking about, reduction?
So basically, you'll have a list of, say, 20, 30, 40 things on there. Just write down the 10 the 10 that jump out at you, first of all, have a break, couple of minutes, then go back, look at the next 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you do this, you will go onto a new piece of paper. So those 10 that you've identified, put them onto a clean piece of paper, write those 10 out in a list form. Look at those 10, highlight the next 5. Line them through, write the 5 down on a new piece of paper, look at those 5, then bring it down to 3, again on a new piece of paper. Each time you move the paper away, you move the paper away, because you're clarifying everything you've done before is past. The new list is the future. The new list is the future. Until you get to the last 3, put them in order of 1, 2, 3, and then work on the first one until it's finished.
Beautiful conversation there. Amazing. So with this process, you can get what we classify as an instant form of focus, bring it to potential.
Absolutely, and trust your unconscious mind, and trust that you have the answer. Trust that your mind actually has the answer, because as soon as you give your mind the instruction, please find the answer to this, and you ask a really good question of your own mind, it will start working to solve that solution and provide a solution. It's whether or not you're then ready to listen to the answers and accept them. And there will be times when you come to a block point where you think, I can't think of anything else. Then just write down, I can't think of anything else, I can't really think of anything else, I can't think of it, I don't know why I'm doing this, is a waste of time, complete. Something will then come in, and then carry on your list.
Aha, so the commitment is the key, right? Got it. So I'm going to take the interview in a slightly different direction. Would
Please
you
do.
believe we're running this hour? What happens, Hissy? What is this? What's going on? We go through time like it's water.
Talking too much.
You're talking sense.
I'm talking sense, or you're talking sense, or he's talking sense. Probably the latter, right? Okay, so the audience, I've got a question coming through which is very clear. I mean, it said in a moment ago, and I've just written it down here, and it said coming via a WhatsApp directly to myself, Gary, what do you do today? I mean, how do you help people? How have you taken your journey forward by taking your coaching practice and understanding from the understanding of speaking about mindset, peak potential, getting people into a framework where they can, overcoming overwhelm. But how have you encapsulated this, and what are you doing today?
Well, what I'm now doing is working for the business board, or working with Sukhi, yourself, on the Business Boardroom Mastermind Program. And this is an accountability, mentoring and mastermind program, meets on a monthly basis, and we bring like-minded business individuals into a room, a safe environment, where they can overcome the challenges that they have each month. So basically they come with a question they don't necessarily want to share with either competitors or potential clients. It could be around how do I move my business forward to the next level? Now the next level could be anything from how do I employ someone to what's my next marketing strategy, what might be my next product, etc. And we give them the opportunity of asking that question using their peers' experience, and we even openly welcome new business owners because they come with a completely fresh set of eyes. You know, if you've been in business for a long time, technically you can't see the wood for the trees sometimes. Somebody who's coming in new to business comes in at it with a completely open mind. They come at it with a view of common sense. And they said, well, if I was in that situation, this is what I would do. And that is really, really powerful for people who've been in business for a long time, because we tend to sometimes lose that directional focus or foresight. So we get the business owners to share their challenges, or their stretches as we call them. We then give them and enable them to go away with a step-by-step plan. Now this is drawing on Sukhi's experience of 27 different business sectors that he's worked, or 27 plus business sectors, I won't say exactly how many, that he's worked. Also my banking experience as a small business advisor as well. Plus my coaching and Sukhi's mentoring as an award-winning business mentor. So we bring all that together, plus the knowledge of the group, and each individual then goes away with a step-by-step plan for each month. And then next month we come back, we find out how they've got on, what's the challenge now. And then during the month we also talk to them and assist them get through those little breakthroughs, which is how the Business Boardroom first came around. Because when I was a mentee of Sukhi's, I had a mid-monthly call. He helped me through a really difficult situation at the time. I could have made a really big mistake had I carried on with my thought at that time. through mentoring and his coaching process, which is what we do with everybody else in the boardroom, he enabled me to see a different viewpoint, a different path, and that viewpoint saved me not only a lot of money, but also saved me a lot of hassle and heartache. Enabled me to have clarity, enabled me to get back on track. I said earlier about we often get sidetracked. Enabled me to get back on track, and that's what we do with Business Boardroom. Enabled me to get on track and then move forward on a more productive view and journey.
So, just a question directly to yourself. I'm Hasibi, if you've got anything coming through, do share as well. But if a viewer's listening right now, if they wanted to, what is the power of a mastermind? And I know we work together on this, but in specific, just to give you an example, what is a mastermind and how does that work?
Good question. Yeah, right. A mastermind is using people's knowledge of their own business. So, for example, we might have somebody who's in computers, we might have somebody who's in retail, we might have somebody who's in construction, or might have somebody in business in the boardroom who's in property. Now, what does somebody in property know about retail? Maybe not a lot. Mm-hmm. But the process they've been through in their business through property can be transferred to retail. Somebody who's in computers, their logic process can be used very effectively to help somebody move forward in being able to go out and buy a house, because you need the process to follow. Clear step-by-step process. So if somebody says, look, how do I move forward? How do I go and buy my first house, for example? The person who's sequence says, right, okay, we can do it this way. If I was in this bit, I would do it this way. Bang, 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 bang. This would be my step-by-step process. The person listening says, thanks very much, takes down all the notes. Somebody else then adds their experience. Somebody else adds their experience. And the person then has a multitude of different things that they could consider, which is then where Sukhi and I bring the focus, because with Sukhi's experience as a mentor, he then channels all that information and says, right, so everything you've covered, absolutely brilliant. What everybody said, fantastic. At this juncture, I would suggest, which is where the mentor comes in, because they then hone in the timing, I would suggest you just do these 5 things first, and then we'll look at the other 6 things that you've got on your list. That's the power of the mastermind, and that's the power of the business boardroom.
So I see, basically what we're talking about here is an organisation where you can actually meet on a monthly basis, and you can actually be yourself in a private environment. So the journey of...
That's an awesome. Say, if someone wants to approach this and get there, how do they do that?
Okay, so if you go on to business-boardroom.com, all the details are there. If you're interested, anybody who's interested, I'm sure we'll give out our number afterwards and the details. And
I think we're going to do something better.
I think I'd like to actually, if somebody is really interested, I'd like to invite them to a business boardroom taster. If somebody's really interested, and
now with respect to that, or they can contact the actual main station itself. Right?
Yeah,
so
please do.
You can even communicate with us now and call 01733 602 133.
Alternatively, guys.
Yeah, and alternatively, you can WhatsApp straight in with an 07745 278 978. And if the program itself comes off being live, do not hold back. Go onto the Facebook site, and actually you can comment down on the actual program itself, and then somebody from the team will actually get in touch with you as well. Now, the thought that I've got in my head is, Gary, I think I want to put you on the spot a little bit, because I'm surprised a little bit that you said, because we didn't discuss this clearly, but you said you wanted to give for example, a taster session. So what does that mean? Because the taster session, you do yourself for £350, so you're being very open there without any discussion with me.
The idea of a taster session is you come along with an open mind to how the boardroom works, and we put you into a normal boardroom environment. So it's nothing special. It's not like we hold back on anything. You are in there with people who have paid for a whole 12-month process and a whole 12-month program. But the power of the boardroom is everybody is there to help each other, and they know that everybody's got to start somewhere. So if you're new into business, or you want to start a business, or you've got an existing business and you want to move to the next level, so move it forward, you have a major sticking point at the moment, then ring up and talk to the people on the station. They'll get in touch with Sukhi and I, and we can then have a look at the questions that come in, and one of you, we will help you with coming along to a boardroom session, and you can listen in and see how it works, and we will give you a step-by-step process to take away to help move forward.
That's very kind of you.
Won't we, Sukhi?
If anybody can see me, and I know you can't hear me particularly on live on air, but I can tell you now, I'm pulling a face. I was not discussed or consulted, so there we are. It's all.
I'm so going to pay for this tomorrow.
Well, do you know what? To be honest with yourself, Haseeb, I am very humbled that we've had Gary Setterfield here today. And the second point of conversation is that, yes, it is quite an interesting offer. It's £350 worth of offer, Gary Setterfield. But I'm very humbled as well, and I'm very proud that it's on there. So just to bring it all together, did you realise that time has gone so quickly?
No, I didn't actually.
Haseeb, wow.
Okay, really quickly.
So hopefully it's helped somebody today to understand the difference between a coach and a mentor, and in specific, how to get in touch with a community of individuals who are all looking to go forward in life themselves as well. This is what the Empower Hour is about. We, as a team here, Haseeb, myself and Shaznawaz, we come out of our way. My name's Sukhi Wahiwala. We come out of our way specifically to assist you to move forward in life and in business with motivations and as inner belief in oneself to move forward with yourself. Gary Setterfield has clearly given us a process to get focused in our life, giving us 26 years of experience and journey to bring to the table so that we can actually turn around and be involved in a business community through the business boardroom. That, just for your reference again, is www.business-boardroom.com. So the Empower Hour, thank you very much for listening tonight, and I hope it's well. Goodbye from Haseeb.